If you create a platform that reduces problems, it then frees you up to do more. And if you take that agile approach to that, okay, where I'm going to compartmentalize these items from a service delivery to a service platform to my service catalog, right? If I look at all those things as in an aggregate, right, they have to be very streamlined in order for you to deliver and have like that quick response, quick delivery, quick change, right? Again, being adaptable. So, and I think Agile really defines that. Like if you have to believe, right? I mean, Ted Lasso here, put the believe sign above the doorway, right? Like you've got to believe in the model and you have to have your team believing in the model. And frankly, you have to get your clients believing in the model. They don't know that it's agile. They don't care.
All right, welcome back to the TopLeft podcast, where we talk about MSP topics, agile leadership, those sorts of things. So today, I'm excited to have a guest, Matthew Bookspan, one of our long-term clients, and just looking forward to a good discussion around Agile. And we'll cover some technical MSP topics, but really, I think this will apply to people in all sorts of positions, even outside the industry. Just it's really about people. So welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is a privilege to have a discussion around this. We haven't planned for this. We just jumped on and we're like, yeah, let's record this. Have some fun.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, just spontaneous. I was speaking with a guest recently, like we recorded a podcast that was great. And then I'm like, it seems like every time after we stop recording, then the real conversation starts. So,
of course.
Okay. So I know you shared on emails that you're really passionate about Agile and it's been transformational in your business. So I guess, yeah, what got you into that?
So I've been in Agile or doing Agile type development since probably 2007. Probably, yeah, 2007. So prior to starting an MSP, I was in the software development world. And we had moved away from the traditional waterfall model and then I started to embracing Agile, I actually became an official Scrum Master, went through that whole process. So when we started BlackTip in 2010, it was, okay, how are we going to maintain that inside of an MSP? Like, how does that work? Right? How do we manage the workload? How do we manage the process and the systems? And it was hard for the first few years because there's not many pieces out there. Software was pretty limited back then, right? And I'm not even talking like MSP-based software. I'm just saying software in general. There are very few products that allow you to do either Kanban or anything of merit. How about that? We just worked through it. Sometimes we would do old school and use Post-it notes and put it up on the whiteboard and kind of work through it that way, and then still have tickets that we just mentally mapped right to what that work was. And it took quite a few years before we saw a product that really let us work this way. And I think the first thing that we saw was from ConnectWise itself. They developed the Agile board, which very few people even know about. It was a beta. We managed to get on it, and we started working that way. And it really opened up the visual workflow for us. Right. Instead of having to step into the other room and figure out what was going on, we now had it, in our faces, which that obviously sped up the whole process. And then when we found TopLeft, not too long thereafter, and the fact that we could integrate not just our standard, reactive tickets, that we could even integrate our project tickets and have a holistic view of all the work in progress, it completely changed our workflow and made it incredibly transparent. And candidly, the people who've come to work for us have been like a little overwhelmed by it at first. And then they go, holy smokes, this is awesome. Because they're like, we totally understand what's happening right now all the time. And I think the other thing that it did, moving to an Agile model within an MSP, is that, you think of a traditional service board and you've got a variety of statuses, right? Blocked, on hold, waiting for vendor, waiting for customer, in progress, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I know some folks have like 20 or 30 statuses. How do you keep up with that? We have 5. Backlog, blocked, ready, doing, done. That's it.
Easy, no thinking. Yeah.
Keeps it 5 simple swim lanes, like exactly what, because we had the rationality or we applied the rationality to say that if you're blocked, that means you're waiting on anything. It doesn't matter. Why do you have to have a special status for that? waiting on client, waiting on partner, waiting on vendor, waiting on whatever. You're still waiting. Like, what difference does it make? So strip back the complexity. So that's part of what Agile is about. Strip back the complexity. Keep it simple. So really, then, because we could view our projects at the same time, we could then really start drawing, okay, from the overall view, like, okay, let's start, what items we're going to work on right now? What's in our sprint for this week? Okay, we want to get these particular items completed. Okay, then we're going to complete the next phase, and then the next phase. And so we I'm sorry, I should step back. So, typical projects in ConnectWise are more traditional waterfall, like they are phases or milestones, as we used to call them. And then there's tickets which represent the particular tasks, and they barely manage dependencies any well, and it's a mess, and they certainly don't handle any level of capacity planning. I mean, it's ridiculous. So we looked at it and said, okay, let's strip this back. We know we have phases and milestones, but how do we start leveraging just the pieces that work for us? And that's where TopLeft actually came in really handy, because again, we could view everything and say, okay, now we're just going to work on these pieces. We start the week, we meet in person, we have a daily huddle. I'm like, okay, these are the pieces we're going to work on this week. Okay, done. I mean, I'd love to have more capabilities, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But with what we have right now, it still makes it incredibly transparent and very, very easy to manage. So I've completely talked your ear off. Your turn.
No, it's good. So you just to drill into a couple of things you mentioned. So you said you got new team members. First, they're overwhelmed, and then they're like, "Oh wow, this is awesome." So I guess those people, are they like new to the industry, or they're already familiar with ConnectWise or Autotask?
So they might be familiar with the ticketing system, not necessarily MSP work. We help them, first of all, because we give them a book. It's actually one of the books that you gave us. When we first started, we bought a bunch more of them. No, it's not the Phoenix Project. It's the other one, which I'm blanking on, making
Rolling Rocks work. Downhill, or Visualizing Work?
No, Visualizing Work.
Yeah.
Visualizing Work. So we have, that is part, like within your first week, you have to complete that book as a part of working at BlackTip. So that way you have, conceptually, you can understand like how we're working and why we work that way. I think the other thing actually it really helped us do, by the way, is it prevented the whole let's work on multiple things at once with the same person. Do one thing, do it well, finish. Do the next thing, do it well, finish. So really for new people who come on board, they tend to actually really embrace it because they can see it's just, I understand, like it's because everyone's got a fairly big display and they keep the board up at all times. So being able to understand what's happening is pretty clear. But we're not big. I mean, there's 7 of us. It's not like we've got 50 to 100 people, and we would then have like different maybe boards based upon like maybe like call it a small integrated team, another small integrated teams, like that, like, or some people have like these super big help desks. Everyone does it differently, right? We call them pods, right? So like we're kind of like one pod right now, and as we grow, we'll build another pod who will have their own dashboard or effectively their own work in progress board, right? As we kind of break things apart, but we know how that can scale. So the tool makes it easy.
Yeah, definitely. The Kanban method scales from single person. You can do it for your personal stuff, like cleaning the garage or the garbage or whatever, right? You can have a Kanban on your refrigerator with some cards or stickies.
Exactly.
But just teams of hundreds or thousands of people, it's just different levels throughout the organization. But yeah, so what we've done is recently in our Windows MSP is splitting like service versus projects. So we haven't done pods, it's just service team versus project, and that helped because until we did that, the projects were getting the short end of the stick and then they weren't rolling along. So once we set up separate boards, dedicated some team members, visualized it, then it really unlocked that. And it's direct money to the bottom line for us is getting the projects done.
Yeah, finishing projects is always a good thing.
Yeah. And the clients give more work. If they see that you're responsive on the request and the stuff is coming out regularly, then they give more work. But we found that they held it back. It wasn't even getting into our backlog. They just held back on even mentioning it to us because they're like, well, we've got to get these 5 or 10 things done before we give you the next list or share more of the vision. So they just had it in the back of their mind or on their project board and just sitting there waiting for us to do the first things.
Wow. Our clients, because we're so fast, and I'm not bragging, like we're just really, really fast. They're like, okay, hey, we can only swallow so much. It's the opposite problem.
Yeah, I had coffee with another client last week, Scott, and who spoke at our boot camp last year. And they went from like something like 300 open tickets and projects, actually 300 open projects, he said, and stuff taken forever, team overwhelmed, just spinning their wheels. And they got it down to like single digits, double digit ticket numbers. And the response time is so quick. The client's like, I'm not like, can you at least give us 15 minutes? Like they're calling right and on it right away. And the client's not ready. So
Yep. We have that same problem. Yep. We've been told by some clients, can you give us a couple minutes before you respond? I mean, our average response time across all clients, all issues is under 3 minutes. Like, and that is like a mark that we've hit straight for 13 years.
wow.
So, and at some points in time, it was less than 2 minutes, and even for some period of time, it was less than 1 minute. And I'm not making that up. I'm looking over here because I see this big dashboard on my wall, and essentially, like, I can go back for all the history and prove it. Like, it's a differentiator, right? Hyper responsiveness is a differentiator for every MSP.
Responding and good communication all the way through the process, but also getting it done. It's one thing to acknowledge and say we got it, but actually following through and getting it resolved. Yeah.
I have a goal, and it's an unrealistic goal. I fully admit that, but that we want to achieve resolution in under 20 minutes. Okay. Now, some things you can do, like that, within couple minutes because they're quick answers or quick solutions or whatever the case may be. Other things, some problems take longer, and then onboardings, of new employees, those always take more time. It's just more moving parts. So you can't do that in 20 minutes. I've never been able to do it that fast, like even personally. It's impossible.
There is some automation with PowerShell and different things to get it down.
Oh, we've done all that.
But 20 minutes is still very tight. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done all that. But I'm talking onboarding, I mean, like a computer too. Like I'm not talking
hardware
about
and everything. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, hardware and everything. Yeah. Oh, is this like an employee in accounts? Oh, that's like 5 minutes. That's easy. Like that's easy. But like when you add in the computer, and even with whether you're Apple or Windows and you do ADE or Windows Autopilot, like it still takes a few minutes like to bake all that stuff in.
So do you have a dispatch person who receives tickets and calls?
Absolutely not.
Nope. Wow.
Nope. Don't believe in it.
And that's
never going to hire it.
But you've had somebody in that role before?
Nope.
Never have. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. No, what we train here is for accountability. And there are no such thing as like favorite people I work with or favorite tickets I want to take. It comes in, you take it. Whoever's available, resource takes it. It is a full pull model.
Okay. Nice.
So we take that pretty seriously.
But everyone's, let's say, there's still certain things that have to be done with the ticket with agreement types, work types, that sort of thing. Or work
automated
types. Do you track it?
Automated, fully tracked.
Okay.
Oh, fully tracked. Oh yeah, fully done. Like we have built out ConnectWise managed with as much automation as possible, so tickets can get auto categorized, types of type items, and we rename, like we have a whole process of like, okay, assign yourself, rename ticket title so it's actually in English, and you understand what they're asking for. Then treat the ticket, configure it auto assigned, because again through workflow rules, and then begin working with the client and their issue. Every single ticket. And then we do a ticket review at the end of the day where we review every single ticket that came through the system as a team.
Every day?
Every day.
And how long does that take?
15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's more just to validate what we've already done throughout the day. And then if anyone had any questions on anything.
Did you bring up each ticket and look at the whole list of time entries and everything?
Absolutely.
Wow. And are you doing that out of TopLeft now?
No, maybe we should. That's a good point. I mean, we have our done column. We could, but I guess the thing is, well, in my ignorance, I might have to have you show me how to do that.
Yeah, well, if you got your done column, you could click on it to bring up the notes and go through it, and then you could drag it to a close column or just hit the close button on it.
Oh, that's interesting. What we do is we actually leave the tickets open for 12 to 18 hours, and then they auto close.
Okay.
We have a workflow rule that handles that part. It's interesting because we've been using the main service ticket search and ConnectWise to review that. That's interesting. Okay. We'll talk to the team. Didn't think about that.
So you could do a manual close. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, so you could do a manual close, and that shows that
that part we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that part. But we let the system auto close it just because in case the client responds back in the morning that something wasn't done, to their expectation, that we avoid the whole reopen nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want to get marked up because maybe we finished something the person had left, or maybe they just had one more question. Right. We give them that opportunity.
Okay.
And so I want to try ticket review now. And okay, that's good. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah. So I guess what about your projects? Like how many projects do you do? Like let's say how many projects would you have open now?
Right now, we have about a half dozen projects open. We tend to try to keep that low and keep that number less than 10, and ideally even less than 5, like concurrently and open. And then because again, we try to do them quickly, and we also compartmentalize projects so that way we can say, okay, this is what we're going to do for this part. Let me put it this way. We sometimes have very large projects that are going to take 30 days or more. But what we'll do is we may break it out into multiple sub-projects, or we'll put it in one project and just do it by phases, depending on how we want to do it. But I just hate having projects that last that long. So instead, it's like, okay, this is the sprint. We're going to do this particular tickets, and then we're going to complete that one, and we'll open up a new project and add the next level of tickets, which then get a part of that sprint, which then get completed. So that's how we do it.
You do okay, and that's like a week or 2 week sprint.
Generally, a week.
Week. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a key thing is minimizing that work in progress where you get your velocity and less things to talk about, right? Like if you're only working on a handful of projects, that your meetings are so much easier.
Exactly. The only time it gets a little more tricky are onboardings, like client onboardings, because those have a lot more tickets and a lot more components.
Yeah.
So that's a scenario where you will see more tickets on the board for that. Although I like seeing is we color code our project tickets brown, kind of matches what we have in ConnectWise. When we see more project tickets than we see traditional service tickets, we're happy. We actually like that. Like that means, okay, like we talked earlier, more money and more good things happening for the client.
Yeah, because that's the projects where we improve their quality of life, their automation, make them more efficient, improve their security, whatever, real improvements. Yeah. And then, so you mentioned the end of day routine of going through the completed tickets. And then do you do like a morning huddle as well?
Absolutely, every day.
Yeah. And what happens if you miss? I guess you never miss, but
miss which part? I'm sorry.
The daily huddle.
Like miss the meeting?
Yeah. So
there are times where I miss it, right? As the owner, like I'm not always there, but we have someone else who will, someone steps up and runs the meeting, right? Like we have someone else who can step in and run the meeting if I'm not going to run the meeting. And generally I try not to run the meeting anyway. I let the team run the meeting. Like, okay, whoever wants to go first, start and then go. Yeah. And it's 15 minutes. Like that's it for all of us. So you better keep it tight.
So what's the agenda? How do you go through that?
So it's okay, what's on your day and what's blocking you? And it's not like, hey, go into detail as to, okay, and here's all the history and background and blah, 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 because no one cares. Like, move on. Like, just say, here's what I'm going to do. And then if there's anything else that's open, like, hey, I'm open for the rest of the day. So if there are other things come in, let me see where I can step in and help. Yeah, very flexible.
Okay. So I've heard you've evangelized other MSPs and converted them over to the Agile way. I guess, how has that gone?
I've tried. I try to lead by example. We show people why we work the way we do. Some folks are overwhelmed or afraid of it, or I don't know if that's really the right word, but like they're not sure. Maybe that's a better word. But they have to decide for themselves what's best for their organization, how they work, right? Because every MSP is unique. Everyone is. Like I've never met this, like we all work the same way. No. And they all kind of take form and shape of their owner anyway, in some capacity.
They do.
Right? And what is it? It's like 80 to 90% of MSPs are less than 10 people. Right? It's like a pretty big number, right? So whenever we hear about all these super big MSPs, it's like, okay, that's not the norm. So the norm is us smaller folks. But for a bunch of our friends and peers where we have demonstrated how we work, they get very interested in it and they try it out. I can't say they're all successful with it because it does take a different mindset and it takes a different approach to work. Mm-hmm. And not everyone's ready or willing to accept that kind of change. So, but we showed this to everybody. I mean, I showed this to my good friend Bjorn, whom you know as well. I showed him TopLeft back in 2017, and he's like, "What the hell is that?" And I explained to him, I said, "This is how we work." And he's like, "Dude, you're like next gen." And that was 6 years ago, right? And so maybe back then we were, but not today.
It's still not many people are into it comparatively, looking at how a lot of people are still using traditional methods. And yet this method of managing work and thinking about work has been around for over 50 years in other industries. Yeah. It's nothing new.
Oh, yeah. Look at Toyota.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read so many books on Kanban. Holy crap.
I would love to go to Japan and tour Toyota and these other places.
Me too.
There's this guy called Paul
Let's go.
Akers. Have you heard of Paul Akers?
Yes, sure have.
And so I've been watching his videos and stuff, and he arranges these tours multiple times a year. So it's like $4,600, and it's like a jam-packed week. It's like 6 days of you're visiting 3-4 companies every day, seeing how they do things. Go. You check their bathrooms, you check everything, because everything is clean and spotless and organized.
Welcome to my office. You should see this place. I say that making fun of myself, but that is who we are. We are very precise. You see our lab, everything is completely organized by client, by place. Like here's our workspace versus here's our workbench. Here's where like there's extra seating, like here's shelving, like everything is labeled. It's pretty hardcore.
I listened to one of his videos recently. He said something like in his manufacturing company, FastCap, that they spend like an hour every day in a huddle, basically, and then another hour on like 5S.
How many people?
Hundreds.
Okay.
So they're basically always talking about how do we improve our work today? How do we declutter? How do we simplify? How do we sort, shine, smoothen, level load, all these things, clean up our workspace, label things better, all these like 1-second things that add up. And compared to most companies in that space, their profit is like 5 times higher, even though they spend like 2 hours a day actually not working on product.
Well, if you've read any books on Kaizen, right? Continuous improvement, right? And what I try to tell people is like, if we make one change a week, we will make 52 changes in a year.
Yep.
Right? If you make one every business day, right? Roughly 20 business days a month times 12, that's 240 changes. Like that's a lot. And it's pretty awesome. And you look back and go, oh my gosh, we did that way. Why? Look how much better it is now. So we're constantly, evaluating and improving. And not just change for change's sake. It's like, okay, is this broken? Is this wrong? How do we make this better? So we're constantly looking at like all of our tools, all of our systems, all of our processes, and saying, okay, what could be better?